An investigative report from USA Today reveals the huge amounts of money that the DEA has seized from people without ever arresting them or charging them with a crime. Nearly $210 million to be exact in the last decade across just 15 major airports in America. Known as asset forfeiture, this practice has yielded huge nets for their bottom lines and the local police agencies who help them. This all done under the claim of cutting off drug trafficking money. But is it actually true, and is it working? To answer that, I was joined earlier by former DEA agent Celerino Castillo. I first asked him about what happens to that money after it's seized. Here's what he told me.
Well, the process on seizing money is it goes through the DOJ system, and then a lot of times it's rewarded back to the agencies that worked the case, whether it was a task force or whatever, but it's also used as a tool for agents to get promoted. The more money you see, the more cases you make, it's used for your promotion.
Really? So that money just goes right back to, let's say, I'm hearing that oftentimes local police stations who assisted DEA agents with those busts, that money can often go back to those precincts. Is that right?
That is correct, and that's exactly what happens when you have a task force that's assigned to a federal task force. You know, you have agencies from all over the county and the state to participate, and in return of all money that's being seized, it's being used to buy equipment and vehicles and other stuff for the locals, and it doesn't have to be specifically made to a certain thing, but they can do as they wish with that money, whether they hire other people with it or so forth. But it does go back to the locals.
Wow. Now, when asset forfeiture occurs, how often are the targets innocent people, totally unrelated to the drugs or any criminal activity? How often are those people, their money getting seized?
It's very, happens all the time, especially here in Texas. People deal a lot in cash when they go out and they buy property. And that's actually what happened to Ricky Ross when he got arrested a couple of years ago. He was on his way from LA to up North California, and he got stopped by the locals, and he took his money, and he did claim that it was for business purchasing of some property, and they went ahead and take that money. But at the end of the day, I think they were able to dismiss the charges on him. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that he gets the money back, because on forfeitures, you really don't have to even be found guilty of anything. If the government feels that they can take that money away from you, they will do that.
Well, my goodness, what is the recourse for somebody then if they, you know, like the case you just mentioned, or I think it's fair to mention that oftentimes it's a cultural norm. I could speak for the Asian community myself, that it's a cultural norm to purchase property or cars or something with cash money. So if you're not somebody that's embroiled in this type of misdeeds or illegal activity, and the money gets seized and you miss out on the property, or you missed out on whatever purchase you were about to make, what recourse does somebody have?
Well, you have to appeal the seizure of the monies. There's a procedure you go through, and you've got to prove. Here in South Texas, for example, or in Texas, you have a lot of car dealerships, and these people actually deal. They actually deal with cash, going up north and buying vehicles and bringing them down. So, you know, that's one part of the stuff that happens, and people, you know, they lose their money because of that.
So they just have they can't sue the government for that money to come back, or they can't sue for any maybe loss of profits. If you were going to purchase a property or something like that, you can't sue the government for it?
Well, you can, but then again, think about it. It's going to cost you an arm and a leg to do that. And sometimes, and what happens most of the time, people would just say, you know what, just forget about it. I'll take it as a loss and so forth, and they continue to go on with the stuff. So
wow.
That's what happens, really.
Wow. Now, in the past 10 years, The DEA has seized about $210 million from people across the country at 15 of the largest airports. More than 50 million of that coming from LAX alone, allegedly all tied to criminal drug activity. But this new report says law enforcement agencies now view these cash seizures as a means to grow their agency's net bottom line. So if this is the new objective, how might this affect drug trafficking and the narcotics industry?
Well, first of all, going back to the first statement you made, that they seize the money because these people are documented as drug traffickers, when in essence, those people are innocent people that get hired out of the street. They don't have a record. They come into the United States with a U.S. visa and a one-way ticket, and to them, that's probable cause to seize the money. When in fact, there are a lot of people just tend to come in and try to live the American dream, and this is what happens. And in essence, about the DEA used to be the leading agency in the drug interdiction, and it's no longer that. So they're not being funded as they used to be funded. So what they do is they go ahead and go out on these operations to actually racial profiling that has been going on since the 80s.
Indiana police used $400K in asset forfeiture funds to boost their own pay and benefits. Audit finds a federal audit of Indiana law enforcement found nearly $400,000 in federal asset forfeiture funds went to pay the salaries, overtime, and benefits for its officers, which the law does not allow. The audit of the Henry County Sheriff's Office's Equitable Sharing Program, released last week, was conducted by the Department of Justice (DOJ) Office of the Inspector General (OIG) Audit Division. In total, auditors examined $802,206 in expenditures made by the Sheriff's Office in 2014 and 2015, including $378,720 that was transferred to other law enforcement agencies as a part of the Equitable Sharing Program, which allows police departments to prosecute asset forfeiture cases under federal instead of state law. The nonprofit Institute for Justice estimates the program results in local police keeping around 80% of the property or assets seized from citizens. Property that is seized by police, including real estate, motor vehicles, boats, aircraft, jewelry, art, antiques, and collectibles, can then be sold back to the public during auctions. According to the DOJ, the asset forfeiture program has a significant impact on crime by removing the tools of crime from criminal organizations. However, a 2014 in-depth investigation by the Washington Post found that of the $2.5 billion in cash and property seized by police nationwide between 2008 and 2016, no one was indicted for a crime in 81% of those cases. The purpose of the federal audit of Indiana was to check if the sheriff's office used the transferred funds for unallowable purposes. Under federal rules, transferred funds from the Equitable Sharing Program cannot be used to pay the salaries and benefits of any law enforcement personnel. The guidelines state that the rule was made to ensure that the funds do not influence, or appear to influence, law enforcement decisions. The transferred funds can be used in limited cases to pay for overtime, or an officer replacing current law enforcement personnel. The funds cannot be used to pay an officer's full-time salary. The auditors found $313,052 of the $378,720 transferred to other law enforcement agencies, and the Proactive Criminal Enforcement (PACE) team was questionable. The PACE team is comprised of 4 local law enforcement agencies in Indiana that patrol the highways. Their purpose is to identify, locate and apprehend individuals engaged in the trafficking of illegal narcotics into and through the state of Indiana. The team also claims that they have seized over $10 million in cash and illegal drugs, which they say is reverted back to fund the salaries and equipment of the officers who are assigned to this detail. The audit found issues with each department and issued recommendations for each division on how to become compliant with the law. The auditors found that the Henry County Sheriff's Office used $178,328 of the transferred funds to pay for the salary and fringe benefit costs of a deputy assigned to the PACE team, with at least $40,875 considered to be unallowable. They found the Greenfield Police Department did not have a separate accounting code for the transferred funds, so auditors were unable to see if the funds were being properly used. They also found the Hancock County Sheriff's Office used $91,562 of the transferred funds to pay for personnel costs and equipment, with at least $5,200 considered to be unallowable. And the audit found the Richmond Police Department used $125,819 in transferred funds to pay for the salary of an officer assigned to the PACE team, including $4,387 in overtime costs, but the auditors could not verify if the officer was ever hired by the department. They are questioning the remaining $121,432 as unallowable, because the department did not comply with the laws on using equitable sharing funds for salary costs.